this episode, we're exploring the Case Room in Lockhart. It's a hidden gem that blends history, craft, and vibe into the heart of the barbecue capital. So whether you're a local or just passing through, this space offers something special. We'll talk with the owner, Jenn Hodges, about what makes the Case Room a must-visit, from its curated selection of goods to the vision behind it.
So we started this bar to have kind of another place in Lockhart to meet and gather. And when I was thinking about what kind of drinks we would serve here, I kind of did a deep dive into classic cocktails and old world spirits. And I have found that it's the same things that get me excited about music. This is just kind of a classic gin martini, 2 parts gin, 1 part vermouth. If I were making it for myself, I'd do 50-50 gin and vermouth, but this is our house martini here.
Let me get that fire going.
Where did you all stay? You're in Denver. What part of town?
Staying on top of the palace.
Nice and diluted into a chilled glass. And then our house martini also has olive juice, so a little hit of the good stuff.
It was kind of downtown.
We weren't far from the town square.
And of course, our Spanish manzanilla olives.
We stayed by the mean Courtney pub.
Oh, the Courtney pub.
There you have it.
Oh, could have gone.
Can I get a Manhattan?
Folk music's from a place, it's, from a certain locale, and there's a lot of tradition in folk music, and I've found the same tradition in these spirits that have been made by the same families around the world for generations. And so there's kind of equally a nerd in both respects, and that I really like telling their stories and keeping the tradition going.
Next, we're unraveling the intricate world of Gayla Partridge, a Lockhart-based artist whose work infuses vintage anatomical art, folklore, and the macabre into mesmerizing embroidery, as well as sculpture and intricate beadwork. She was kind enough to invite us into her home studio to see the incredible pieces that she's been working on, as well as talk to us a bit about her process and what drives her to create such detailed and beautiful work.
I'm Gayla Partridge. I'm an artist in Lockhart, and I do mixed media bead, like French beading, a little bit modern sort of assemblage, essentially. It was always my focus, very much so. My parents were very encouraging of it. So I've done art my entire life in some form or another. Pre the photography, pre the stitching, pre all that. Early 20s, I did stained glass. So there's just been cycles of different media depending on, what I had access to at the time. Photography was where I found the most success and ran a very successful, and it took off. Did not expect it to. I had a great partner at the time, Lisa, and we did that for 15 years. It had a book that came out that did really, really well that's out of print now. And so I pretty much focused on that. So I've worked in corporate. I've had my corporate job for 26 years. So while I was running the photography company, while I've done all these other things, I've actually worked for the telecommunication company that I work for. So I did 26 years. It'll be 27 in September. And it was initially started out as pinup photography, just because I liked it. At the time, I was swing dancing a lot, saw a lot of Dale Watson. And so it was just a sort of a product of my environment at the time. And as I started to get into it, realized that pinup, was great. And I did it the entire, it was, for lack of a better word, the moneymaker, right? But a couple years in, really started getting into the high concept. So I found out that I didn't really like the photography as much as I liked building the giant sets and building the costumes and, the whole entire thing. And at the end, I would photograph it. That was sort of like an aside. So if you were to look at the body of my work over, the last 30 years, there are some themes that you'll find in the first book, which was the photography. You'll find in the second book, which was the stitching, not only color theory in terms of I tend to gravitate to the exact same colors depending, regardless of the medium, but also I've always laid heavy in anatomy and, Baroque things. And so the stitching happened because at the time I didn't have a hobby. Teddy, I had closed the studio, the photography studio. We retired. Like we basically said, hey, I think we've done it. Like, I picked up stitching and I can't even remember. It was probably prompted by something I saw like on Instagram or something and was like, oh shit, I could do that. And the other thing about embroidery is it's cheap. It is like an incredibly cheap hobby to do. The materials alone, there's like almost no cost layout. And so at the time, because I had no intention of, it was truly a hobby. So within a year, I had a book deal because I just can't help it. Nowadays, there's a ton of anatomy, embroidery, it's an entire genre. But at that time, it really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of it. Merging a lot of the botanicals with the anatomy, which you see like everywhere now, like Etsy's just full of it. But at the time, I really didn't see a lot of it. And so that was cool because I felt like I wasn't doing what everyone else was doing. And embroidery was so easy. Like I didn't need to, like you watch a couple of YouTubes and you can do embroidery. It's not that hard. So that's how the embroidery came along. And we actually happened to have a friend who was working for a book company. And he just reached out cold and said, hey, you got a lot of work now and it's really cool. Want to do another book? And of course, I'm an overachiever. And I was like, of course I do. So I spent the next year working on it all the time because I didn't have enough work for, you have to have a lot of work for a book. And I had hobby stuff. And so it worked out because of the photography. I could photograph all the work. So that, made it easier too, right? Because I already had all the photography stuff. So it was really easy in terms of did the work, photographed the work, and then we had the book. So that's kind of how it happened. But it also is very much in line with the things that I've chosen to treat my anxiety. So I picked up the embroidery to stay busy, but I have done that my whole life. Like it is also why I'm really good at my job. I'm able to stack a lot of information and it tends to quiet my mind. And the busy work of stitching or the busy work of French beading, it's like how you get like a relief of cognitive load when you watch a movie that you've watched 50 times over. There's no surprises, it's very calming. The hand action is very much like that for me. And so it all sort of worked out when I was choosing the next medium. It was very much, I need something similar to that. I feel like I've done the stitching thing. I don't have anything new in me. And so I picked the French beading, which Russian YouTube helped me out with a lot because I had no idea how to do it. And I did watch a lot of YouTube to figure that out. It's much harder and it's much more expensive. Yeah, but it was much harder. The ramp up, the number of like things I had to search out on how to do it was much different than embroidery. I will literally picture the completed piece in my head and then I will execute it. It does morph a little in the process, but not a lot. And so really I have an end goal. I generally know the dome size, like I choose, because these things can't sit outside of a dome. Nobody wants to dust that. It's like impossible. So I do usually start with either an antique case or a dome for practicality reasons. So then you're constrained by the size of whatever it is, the thing that you've chosen to put it in or put it inside. And then it's usually a small element that I build the rest of it on. And you can see it in some of them. You're like, oh, I get where like the thing was that you were doing and then the rest of it built around it. But even these things, I don't make them to sell them. Like I make them for the process of making them because they treat my high anxiety. And so I can sit for 12 hours and fiddle and I am completely content to just make the parts. And then once you've made, a whole table full of parts, my favorite part is putting it all together. But that little, that takes like a weekend, right? But you can make parts for weeks. Couple of things. I don't mean to ghost people. I just, when it comes to talking about the work, it's just not priority, right? And so to sell a work, to get a gallery, to do all that stuff that we did for the photography, I just don't have it in me. And a lot, it's a lot of it's privilege. Like, I make the art because it treats something in me and I enjoy it and I love having them. Like, when I walk in, I'm like, oh, all my babies are here, but I also don't need to feed my kid on it. So it's like a level of privilege that I get to make very beautiful things. But at the end, I'm not like, okay, who's going to buy this thing? Because I got to make another one, and then I got to make another one, and then I got to make another one. The downside is, after a couple years, you've got 50 domes in your house, and, it's a little much. And I never have to make a decision based on, oh, would this sell? I don't care. Like, great if it does eventually, but any decision I make is because, I want it in the TV room when I'm watching Ghostbusters for the 50th time. And the piece is like right there. Like, I'll look at it forever. In the bead series, I would say 45, roughly. Yeah. With some bigger ones and then some smaller ones, but about 45. Oh, how long does it take to make one? It depends on if it's heavy in the French beading, which is the fundamental sort of for lack of a better, like the crocheting of the actual bead pieces. But you'll notice that some of them are heavier in like shells and things, right? That doesn't take me any time. So I would say the average one, I can make parts for, and remember, I work 50 hours a week at my day job and I have a 10-year-old. So they can take about 3 weeks to make all the parts and about a weekend to put it together. Yeah. And that's these, which are the ones that I prefer to make. The cat that I'm working on now is much slower. It's just a different technique. That one's going to take me that's probably about 6 weeks. But these, the ones that I prefer making, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, 3 weeks. I think I realized I was treating it with the focused hand. Like, that's where all of a sudden I found, and it was the embroidery. So it was much after the photography, I found my brain was calmer the more I stitched, right? And so, and as anything, I'm obsessive. I'm an artist. You get obsessive about stuff and would do more and more. Just found that it really just sort of calmed the noise. And so when I was done with the stitching, I literally was like, what else can I do with my hands? And ran across French beading. I was like, oh, I can do that. And it actually soothes me even more